I'm back. I got in that car and too far away from the Wi-Fi apparently, and it kicked me off stream. So said it was still streaming, but I saw the chats and people were saying that they'd lost me. So I thought I'd just restart the stream. Hopefully you guys will find me again, and we'll continue where we left off. Give it a few seconds, but yeah, this is part two. Apparently when I sat in the car, it lost connection. Still said I was going, but I saw the viewers drop and people commenting that they lost me, so we're going to try and refresh again. All right, we've got two people in here now, so hopefully you guys found me again. I sat in the car apparently and it lost connection, so to me it was still streaming, but I was seeing comments that everybody had lost the stream, so I just restarted it. So welcome back. So I was asking before it shut off, how many of you guys were going to 944 Fest? Hi, Kelvin. Hope you're having a great Saturday. Yeah, I own quite a bit of them. So yeah, I'm glad you guys were able to make it back. I'll have to keep that in mind. Sometimes I can stream out there to connect to cellular and it'll keep streaming, but unfortunately in this, it just got too far away from the Wi-Fi. So we'll keep that in mind for future live streams. I try not to leave the shop for reasons like that. Sometimes I'll do it when I get out the door, sometimes just certain areas, but probably wouldn't hurt. I don't really need to leave the shop anyway, but if I was, then I would probably go ahead and get a Wi-Fi expander out here, but Anthony says, hi, Andreas. Well, hi, Anthony. Hope you're having a great Saturday. I'm sorry to hear that. Kelvin says he sold his 944 last year. What model did you have? We're going to try and go through today and just sort of talk about, maybe since it's a special Saturday stream, we'll talk about things to look for. I was driving my 924S the other day and had a guy stop me. I was trying to fill the washer fluid in my tank and check the fluids, and he was a younger guy, and he's like, I'm really wanting to get into one of these cars. And I was like, well, I guess you're asking the right person. I've only worked on thousands of them, so we're probably in the thousands now. I can't even keep them straight, and I usually know everybody. I mean, everybody's car that I work on, you know, they have a note in my phone, so I can keep track of, like, it's, say for instance, Sammy with a blue turbo, you know, I know everybody's name and I can go, okay, I remember the car. But it's getting to be now where it's getting pretty hard, you know. It's been about 10 years and about 5 different cars in and out a month, you know, it's getting kind of crazy. But I thought it'd be pretty interesting to maybe, especially since we have some of these cars here, to not show a car that we've done a full restoration on or something, but we have a few cars here that just need a little bit of work, and give you some ideas of exactly what we do when it's a barn find or whatever, when you first buy a car, something that you can do at your house. Kelvin says, I like your shop. Well, thank you very much. We need a bigger shop. We got even more cars outside, so that's the next step, because right now we're crammed in here, and hopefully we'll make a new move soon. Anthony says sometimes my door won't unlock even when the mechanism is in the unlock position. See if something's binding up inside there. Maybe the inside door handle cable or something's still kind of like sticking to the mechanism. I've seen an 84. It just needed the entire locking mechanism replaced because every now and then it just would not unlock, and we just had to replace the entire locking mechanism. The guy was getting locked in his car, and the only way to really get it to open, it was, I know what it was. It was the locking mechanism was jammed up, but it was also binding on the little rod. For some reason, the rod was bent too. So the rod that pushes the door trigger down. So when you pull the trigger, it pushes the rod down, and then it pushes on a ball, and that actually unlatches the door. So it's probably more appropriately called the latch. But that ended up being the issue, and the only way he could get it open was jiggling the key around while messing with the little trigger on the door handle, and you're just having to jiggle it until it finally, and then I was like, if you unlocked it from the key, it wasn't a problem. It was if he accidentally hit it while driving down the road and locked the door, then he couldn't get it back out. So I would check that. I would see if like maybe something's binding up, and it could be to do with the lock. But sometimes when the cables for the door handle inside wear out, they'll fray or they'll just get sticky, and maybe it's not releasing. Check to see if like the handle's laying flat. If that's not in the right place, it won't lock and unlock the door. But yeah, all sorts of things can cause that. So just something to check out. Kelvin said his was in 1986. Not sure what model. Well, have a good day, Kelvin, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Richard says, got any room there? I have an 89 2.7 that needs worked on. We should have some room coming soon. Send me an email at address.info@gmail.com, and we'll have a good conversation and just see what we can do for you. Yeah? Anthony says I got locked in the car and had to crawl out. That sounds about right. It may be, yeah. Try taking the key and jiggling the trigger, like not pressing it all the way in like you're trying to open the door, but just sort of like moving it back and forth while you're jiggling the key, and see if you can get it unlocked. And then see if it's repeatable by pushing the latch or the button inside. If it, well, I'm acting like you're not looking at me, but if you push it down like that, and then you pull it up to unlock, and that's when it's not opening, then you're probably going to have the same problem this guy had. And the only way to do it was to take the key and try and turn it while kind of doing this back and forth, and eventually it'd just come up just enough to unlock it, and it would be fine. He could unlock the door with the key just fine, but the second like he's driving on the road and he just leans over and does that, then that's when it messed it up again. So not fun, but it worked fine with the key. But if he forgot and accidentally locked it, then that's when that started. And you probably have the same problem as it's probably going to be right there at the just some stuff binding up in there. I haven't seen that other than on that car. So luckily it's not a common problem, but it seems to be if you got an early car. There you go. It might be just something with the early cars, but the same design pretty much carried through the entire production of these cars, but you never know. So yeah, we were talking about little things to look for when you buy one of these cars. So I've driven my car cross country and daily drive it. I've probably put 150,000 miles on the car in 10 years. And I'm rough on it. and it's not my first 944. The other ones I daily drove and did a lot of work too, and you know, they were well maintained. But the thing is that when it comes to maintenance on these things, they're pretty good. People sometimes say, "Oh, well, they're unreliable," but the thing is that they were so reliable that people drove them into the ground. They just kept driving. Oh, I'm just gonna drive even though the wheels making noise. I'm gonna drive even though the engine's making noise. You know, and it's deferred maintenance on deferred maintenance on deferred maintenance. You know, they fell into a lot of people's hands back then that didn't really take care of cars, because back there in the early 2000s, the market sort of fell out of the sports car market, and so they got really cheap. So yeah, today we're going back through, and a lot of these cars we're just having to undo 40 years of people hodgepodging stuff together and cutting wires for amps and stereos and trying to fix things the way they shouldn't be fixed. But there are still a lot of really good cars out there. So I am seeing quite a bit more cars that still have their factory radios, and they still have the factory radio wiring. And so they're still out there. They're starting to surface. These cars had sat in garages for years, and they're starting to finally see the light of day again. But these cars were really, really good. And you know, some of this rubber, everything needs to be replaced that's rubber at this point. Let's be real. But considering that it looks even this good is testament that they use like really good parts and chose really good materials to build these cars. So we'll start out sort of, I've got a 84 here, which is going to represent the early cars. I have a 944S here, which will represent the S cars, and I've got a turbo, and we have a 968, but it's modified. So we'll just go through the 944 series and 924S series. So before we get started, we will take a comment. Anthony says, "I'm bringing my car to you and sort out all my issues." That'd be great. Yeah, just send me an email and we'll touch base, and we'll definitely get you in here. Jeffrey says, "Hello Brent, scrambling for 944 Fest. I've got a few mystery wire brackets I'm sorting as I get my engine back together. Hope to have it running tomorrow with the help." Well, that's awesome. Yeah, let me know how that goes. I want to hear it run. Richard says, "My first 84 had the fuel pump directly wired to a switch in the cabin from the battery." Yeah, it's not uncommon. So we had a car in one time. The guy brought it in. He's like, "Oh, the car ran and drove when I bought it." I was like, "How many years ago was that?" He said, "Oh, just a year or two ago." That car, there's no way that car ran, because the wires to the fuel pump were cut, and they'd straight wired them not only to a switch, but the switch was no longer hooked up. The switch looked like it hadn't been, you know, that switch hadn't been present for at least 15 years. And the fuel tank, I assumed was rust, but after we flushed it out and we changed it, we found that that was dried fuel. Like, how long does it take for fuel to dry? Especially, like, it had to be a full tank, because whatever was in there was dried up almost to the top, and I guess it's going to lose some mass drying out. So, I mean, you could reach your hand in there, and I thought it was rust, but it just turned out being dried fuel. And I'm like, that had to have taken, I've seen cars in junkyards for 15 years that still had like fuel in them. So I wouldn't put the fuel in the car and try and run it. It was brown fuel, but it didn't look like that. Anthony is asking, we're located right in Charlotte, North Carolina. So we are probably, I don't know, 10 minutes from Uptown, which is our downtown. Don't ask me. But yeah. All right. So we'll go through just some quick things to look for when you're buying one of these cars. As the old adage says, there's nothing more expensive than a cheap Porsche, but that goes with any car, but particularly these cars. So buy the best one you can afford, and you know, spend whatever you have to on it. If it's going to be a $10,000 for an 84, it really doesn't need that much, and the paint's good. So you're going to regret it. Like, you may go, oh, I'll not worry about the paint. Oh, I'll get it painted later. Trust me, just go ahead and buy the nicest one, because it's going to turn into a snowball of a job. These cars are old, they're going to need a lot. So get that car that's been sitting in the barn and fix it up. Now, be warned, I'm not saying one that has like 10,000 miles on it. Those are going to be just as much of a nightmare as one that has 250,000 miles on it, but for different reasons. That car may have nice paint and a nice interior, but it's going to need a full engine reseal. There's nothing worse than oil sitting in these things. The transmission's going to be leaking all over the floor too. So now you got to get the transmission resealed, and everything's got to be everything rubber, like typically rotted, even unless it's been in a climate controlled garage. I wouldn't expect anything to survive. A lot of these cars that have been sitting they look nice, but they need a lot of work. So okay, let's start off with a 944, just your bare bones Porsche 944. So let's say you're looking at one. Flip this around. A lot of 944s look like this. Now this one's getting repainted, but yeah, a lot of them look like this. I think people call it Guards pink. I've also heard Guards orange. This one looks more of a pink, but be sure to check the interior. It's getting all new stuff. This is going to be a complete restoration on this car, but I will say that look at the early sport seats, and they are in fantastic shape. So you know, we'll make sure we keep this cover on here, but look at the seats, look at the steering wheel. Not all of them are leather wrapped, so they're not going to be in this condition, but this one just happens to be leather wrapped. The dashes are all going to be cracked unless you find a super rare one. They are available new for the early cars, so no big sweat there. Let's get you a new dashboard. The new ones hold up a little bit better. And as far as rust goes, these cars aren't particularly bad about rusting out. If they do, they like to rust around here. See, this car's nice and solid. It's not the prettiest car, but it's solid, you know. Second place to look for rust is over here at the battery tray, and you're going to want to pull the battery out to take a look. Any rust here, you're going to have water going straight into the floorboard. This is even worse if you have a late 944, because on this one you just have you know, there's just a glove box underneath there, and that's replaceable, and you know, you can replace whatever else if you weld this up. But on the later cars, you've got a bunch of junk up underneath there, from the HVAC system to the fan wiring, just you name it. There's just a bunch of stuff up underneath there, and it's worse to work on. But yeah, those are mainly the two areas. Look for rust. Also get up underneath it and look just for the heck of it. I never seen any rust underneath. We've had to replace floor pans in these cars, but those are mainly the European cars. On the US cars, we don't really see any rust other than the battery tray, and probably a bunch of different reasons for that. So yeah, so that's the first thing to look for, is look at the body, look at the interior. Cracked seats are normal, and keep in mind that these only have 5-digit odometers, so if someone's trying to tell you, yeah, it only has 20-30,000 miles, but the seats are cracked, yeah, that's 123. And if they're really cracked, it's probably 223. So just keep that in mind. Richard says, I will send you an email. Keep up the good work. Got to run. I appreciate it. Hope to see you later. Jeffrey says, is a 944 Fest a good place to find a 944 for sale? Huh. I'll never see any there for sale, but you never know. Somebody might have one for sale. No telling. It's different. Bunch of different people come, so someone might just trailer something in and have one for sale. I wouldn't say that. I couldn't tell you if I'd ever seen one for sale there before. I don't think that I have, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was, and I just didn't know it. But on the other hand, you know, hey, everything's for sale, right? You know, so you might see one you like, but no, I don't typically see cars out there specifically for sale or anything like that. Well, most of the cars there, I think they're owned by people that love them and wouldn't give them up for anything. So, but that is an interesting question. But then I'll say no, and then suddenly there's 5 cars for sale there. So, you never know. It's going to be I think of a little bit of a different crowd this year too. So we're not in the middle of nowhere, Ohio. We're going to be kind of more centrally located in Virginia. So I'm hearing that it's going to be bigger than ever. So, you know, you never know who's going to show up. There's really going to be 400 cars out there. There's no telling. But usually when I go, there's about 100 cars, and you know, I mean, mine's for sale. I'll walk home if I get paid right. You know, just playing with you, you know. But anyway, yeah, look for rust on these cars. It's not common, luckily. You know, if you're looking at like an old 80s Ford or something like that, you know, you might as well just plan on rebuilding the whole thing. These cars are not like that. They're still very solid. Almost every part for these cars is available. I haven't really found it. For a while, the main bearings were hard to find, but they're back. They're a little more expensive than they used to be, but hey, it is what it is. Yeah, everything's pretty much in stock. There's even people making brand new lines for these cars, new vacuum lines and stuff. So, I mean, anything you want, and a lot of this stuff we get from parts brokers and stuff. So, yeah, AC lines, I think there's just one on the early cars you can't find, but you can see that these have been replaced, and those are available new. All the sensors are available new. You can buy the early harness, I believe, brand new, not cheap, but there are companies that make new harnesses, not cheap, but hey, available new. The hoses are easy to find. The damper for the fuel pressure regulators, they're out there. They're expensive, but they're out there. So like everything's replaceable. So yeah, just moving on from, you know, look for rust, look for wear, find what you can look for that's acceptable to you. Again, buy the best one you can afford, because you're going to have a lot of problems taking off. You find one that's got perfect paint and perfect interior and the belts have been done, it's going to be a little bit more expensive, but hey, so all the stuff's done, get out there and drive it, you know. But so typically when cars brought in and the customer doesn't know what's been done to it, first thing we're going to do is compression test. We're going to go through and check the fuel lines are clear. We're going to send the injectors off to be rebuilt. We got a fantastic group of people that rebuild our injectors. And when I say rebuilt, they put new filters in there. They check the panels. No, if they're leaking from the body, they can't be rebuilt, and if the panels are bent, they can't be rebuilt. But what they'll do is they go in and fix everything that can be possibly replaced in there, and put new seals and everything on there. And you can see they even sandblast them and paint them black again, so they look as good as they run. But yeah, we don't. I have put aftermarket injectors on these cars. It's a hit and miss situation, but for the most part, we try and rebuild them. Spark plug wires are available. Everything's available. So when you're going in, make sure that you want to try and have all this work done. But like I was finally getting to, so when they bring it to us, and we don't have any information on it, we go ahead and do the oil cooler seals, and I'll tell you more about that in a minute, and we do the head gasket. So in this case, this car was great, everything, but the further we got into it, the early cars, the head gaskets tend to leak on the outside here once they've reached 40 years of age. And there's nothing you can do to it other than replace the gasket. It's not going to hurt anything other than you're going to lose coolant, and it's going to go down the side of your engine, which nobody wants that. So that's why we do it. We don't want these cars to leave with stuff like that. We try and go through and make sure that everything is as good as we can get it. And you know, if the car comes in with something, you know, DME relay or something's gone out, then I'm not going to try and fix all the oil seals in the car. You know, we're going to try and get it out, and we can deal with that later. But as far as the oil cooler goes, you always, unless you have records that it's been changed, those seals have been changed, you want to make sure that those are done, because when they go bad, then it's a huge mess, and it may result in an engine rebuild. So people talk about how important it is to check timing belts and change timing belts on these cars, and yes, it's very important, but the oil cooler goes, now you're talking about an engine rebuild. The head can be taken off in like 20 minutes, but given that the studs don't break, you know, but you know, it's not such a big deal. This thing goes, you've got stuff in there and it'll never come out, especially if it's been driven like that. So if it mixes and it hasn't been driven, you're fine. You just drain it out and change the seals. But there's a video I made where I was scooping sludge out of the oil pan. The only way to get that stuff out was to just scoop it out and hose the oil pan off. So it is a very messy job. You don't want to just like drain it out, put fresh oil in there, because that sludge that is just 3 inches thick still in the bottom of that pan. So, and it's not going to come out. Daniel says, what is acceptable compression on a 944 NA? 140 should be what you're aiming for, and I've actually seen it a little bit higher on later models, like the 160 horsepower, the 10-2 compression. So in 89, it's going to be a little bit higher as well. And of course, an S would be higher. I think a S is about 180, but 140 to 160 for like an early model car is what you're looking for. Thomas says, recommendations for softer suspension on an 86 turbo. Do you do suspension work? We do. So yeah, we do suspension work. Basically, if it's broken, it's replaced. If it's bent, it's replaced. We don't get a lot. Every now and then it's like, hey, upgrade my sway bar, and do little odds and ends like that. It's put conies all around. So the work that we do with the suspension is just trying to make sure that we keep it set up. So if we put the coney adjustables in there and we upgrade the sway bar on the front, we have to make sure we do the sway bar on the back, and we want it to, you know, all work together properly. We don't want to upset what the factory did. So as far as suspension work goes, if something's been wrecked, bent, broken, it's trash. We're replacing it. If the frame or the body of the car is damaged, then we also, you know, it depends on if it's right there where if the wheels are sticking out one side more than the other side, we just go ahead and scrap that car. You may love that car, but it's probably just never going to be right again. So, I mean, that might be fine on a Mercedes where you're going in a straight line and you're like, oh, it's my old classic one-of-a-kind Mercedes, and they got it close to back. But this is 944. There are a bunch of them out there, and it's never going to handle right. Who's going to want to drive a car that's like, yeah, going a mountain run, and you're like, it's not, it doesn't drive like a Porsche anymore. So, well, if you're wanting a softer suspension, you're probably going to want to go back to the factory. I believe Bosch and Sachs both made shocks for these cars, and not only that, but Coney and Bilstein did too. But for the basics, there were Sachs and Bosch. I think Bosch was probably the one, or Bosch, whatever they were. Those were the most common you'd find, so you could probably go back to something like that. KYB makes some. People have mixed opinions on that. So, yeah, stick with something like that. If it's too hard, it seems kind of odd that the 40-year-old suspension would be too firm. But it happens. Yeah, I would say if you want to really go soft, you'd probably go with some, don't get the sport KYBs, just get like, even the sporty ones, like they just sag in the rear. So yeah, you'll really get a soft ride out of those. But if you just get the non-like G thing, and I'm not recommending it, I'm just giving you options. But yeah, I think the softest suspension is probably the KYBs. You can buy their like sport suspension and the back still sags on those things. So there's mixed opinions on this stuff. I have KYBs on some of my cars. You know, I don't put the Coney yellows on everything I drive and everything that I own. So I have personal experience with it, but I have personal experience with the Coneys too. I don't think the Coneys are going to be what you're looking for. If you're wanting a softer ride, I'd go back with the stock stuff. So I hope that helps. Kind of rambling around in circles. Someone mentioned the Bilstein. So the problem that I have with the Bilstein is that you can't get the front struts anymore. As far as I know, they don't make them anymore. They do still make the rear, but they don't make the front. So for me, that doesn't work for me. I can't have like KYB or Bosch or Sachs on the front and then the Bilstein on the back. They got to be all the same. So but I would recommend those. I believe that they used to make a stock suspension setup, and then they made the heavy duty ones. Coney has different adjustables too, but I just wouldn't go with those at all if you're just looking for a nice everyday driver suspension. So yeah, once these cars come in, we do the head gasket, do the cam tower seals, do the belts, the rollers, the water pump, the oil cooler seals, all new exhaust manifold gaskets, and then just check the brake booster and the. You can see that this still looks good, surprisingly, and this is brand new here. So check the brake master and the brake booster and stuff for leaks. We check all the brake lines. Might as well replace all the rubber brake lines while you're at it. A lot of these you can no longer see through, so whenever there's a chance, we just go ahead and replace these. We also try and go through and replace all the clamps and stuff, so everything we know is working properly, because those clamps rust up, they don't work properly anymore. So that's pretty much what we do on the early cars. We just go through and make sure that everything is working, clean the injectors and replace any seals, change the water pump. And when it comes to the S's, that's really no exception. Same with the turbos. You're going to look for rust. Same spot, same area, same chassis. So Let's see. Daniel says, are 944 supposed to have higher profile tires in the front versus rear? Depends on what you got. So if you're saying the higher profile tire should be in the front, that doesn't sound correct. You should have lower profile in the front because it's going to be an air tire. So you got to think of tires in aspect ratios. And I'm terrible at it. I'm not a tire guy. But I know what an aspect ratio is. And basically, so just to sum up, it's probably not going to be 100% accurate, but it'll give you an idea of how aspect ratios work. For instance, you might have a 205 70 15, and you'll have a 225 65 17 or 16, whatever. Choose whatever. That's probably going to screw it up, and some tire guy out there is going to be like, no, I don't know tires. I just know this is typically how this could work. So you could have a 205 on the front, and it's we'll say 55. And then you could have a 225 on the back that is a 70, but to be the same exact height coming off the ground. So if that makes any sense. So even though it says it's taller, it's really not, and it'll just be wider. Like it will, but just marginally. It'll still be like the same ride height. It's just the way tires work, if that makes any sense. You'll have a wider tire that's not really any taller, and it'll be as tall as the 205/60 or something, you know. So as far as you having a higher profile on the front, that shouldn't be. So an instance of this is like these two tires here on this car. These two tires here are basically the same height, but they're not the same width. So this one here will be, let's see if we can find it. Is it gonna show up anywhere? It's gonna be down there where I can't read it. But I wanna say that this one was like a 225 50, and then this one back here is like a 245 45. But overall, like, this is still the same, if that makes any sense. Okay, I'm just talking about the same thing over and over. But anyway, Mark says, who's antifreeze? So this is, we use, make sure, there's two brands that are almost identical, and I want to see which one that we actually got. We either use Peak or, what is it? Where's all our jugs at? I think it's Peak. We use the Peak European Blue. But there's another brand we'll grab when we can't find that. So this is the Peak European Blue. So why do we go with the blue? Because it mixes with the green, so it works on the green cooling system. So even though we flush it out and there's no more green stuff in here, if you mix the green and blue, it doesn't matter. This is meant to work with that. It doesn't have anything. So like modern cooling systems are built completely different with different materials, and they require special fluids. If you put a newer style coolant in the car, then you may find gaskets deteriorating. You may find that passages kind of clog up, and especially if it's mixed in any way. So this blue is compatible with the green, and that's why it's listed for cars before 1986. But not only that, it means you can go 150,000 miles, 5 years, 150,000 miles. The green stuff, it was a nightmare. You had to change that stuff quite frequently, or else it just, yeah. So that was a 3-year, 30,000 mile coolant change, which is not fun. So this is a 5-year, 150,000 miles coolant. So that's what we use here. Goes a little bit longer because, hey, who's got time to change that stuff every 3 years? But Mike says sidewall equals aspect ratio 100%, 100 width times the width, or divided by the width. Is the star times or divided by? Can't see it. So what car are you bringing to 944 Fest? So I was gonna bring my, I've got an 84 that's like this color here. I was gonna bring that, but I'm not. I'm gonna take my 24S again this year. So there you go. Plan to do that. It runs and drives and everything, but it stays over at my mom's house. It's her car. So I was doing some work on it for like the past couple of months, and I was like, so the star was multiplied. Okay, that's what I thought. Gotcha. So I said it right the first time. Okay, I'm like, question myself. All right, that's good to know. I don't claim to know anything about tires. I just know that what we'll do is we'll use what's recommended. I should know tires. We don't do a lot of tires here. I take it to the guy. I'm like, hey, tires do we need on this? There we go. I trust him. When I get a tire guy, I worry about it, but no, we farm that stuff out. But yeah, I was doing some work to her car, and I was gonna take it to the fest, and at the end of the day, I was like, I'm finished with it. I'll send it home. I'll just take my car. So, but I did take it to Helen this year. But I'll be there in the 24S. Mark says they'll be there in the 968. Well, awesome. What color? I was just wondering, do you all always get a 944 Fest, or do you? Is this your first time? Oh, okay, cool. It'll be good to see you there. That's a pretty far track, right? MN's Minnesota. MN Montana. MI is Michigan. MN is see, I get on here and I'm live, and then I'm like, start second guessing myself. So yeah, so with the S's and the turbos, you're going to look for rust in the same areas. With the S's, they're a little bit trickier. So with the S's, you're going to want to take a peek right up underneath here and look at this chain. The guide should not be brown, and you can't really see that bottom plastic guide down there. But on this car, it was not replaced. You can see it's bright white now, but that one was not replaced. And these crush rings here were completely broken and not sealing anymore, so this was not getting proper oil. So the chain looked good, but why would someone take this all apart and not change the bottom chain guide and then screw this up? So it was like just a lot of little tiny screw ups. You want to make sure that this is all intact. These love to strip out, like I mentioned earlier. And we found that we had 3 good lifters in this car. So if it clacks, the lifters are luckily available brand new. So we were able to put all 16 brand new lifters in here, and we just went ahead and replaced the chain. Chain looked fine, but you don't want it. Don't want to risk it. If they didn't change that, what else did they do? We changed all this. So with 16 valves, they're great little cars, but this is just so critical right here. Not only do you have to do the belts, I just go ahead and, we didn't plan on this. We never really planned on it, but the head was cracked right here on this car, so it meant taking the head off. We also found us spun bearing, for lack of better words here, because it doesn't really have a bearing surface. It's just a saddle that works as a bearing. But yeah, 16 valve guys, take the cam tower off. Let them see, look under here, see what's been done. I've seen just absolute carnage from these things on here. FCIC says, I'm meeting up with the group on Thursday for the drive. Awesome. You coming through Charlotte? Or just a local group? Mark says, land of the frozen chosen. FCIC, rookie mistake on the guides. Yeah, there's a lot going on here that, yeah. Someone tried to JB weld this back together. I didn't weld it, and that's not gonna work. I'm gonna come around here and we can see it a little bit better. But yeah, this whole corner here was just broken completely off. And someone's like, oh, we'll just JB weld it. And of course, they just left this damaged in here. It's like, we can't do that. We got to fix it right. So we got all that fixed up right. But this is definitely critical on the 16 valve. I would just start by looking at these and hope that nothing else is stripped out. But like I said, I've seen absolute carnage here. So you won't be able to tell if things are stripped out until you get in here. But at least if the head looks this nice, it is repairable. Oh, cool. Well, awesome. Be good to see you again then. So the S's are kind of fun, kind of delicate, but you get them right, they're perfectly fine. All right, moving on to the turbos. Again, same rust issues, if they have rust issues. So we probably had 5-6 cars with rusty battery trays out of like God knows how many. So it's not a common problem, but I would turn down a car that had a rusty battery tray personally. But they're not that bad. We fix them. It's the thing. If you really love the car, it's fixable. But or you already own it, it's fixable. But it's one of those things that it happens. But yeah, it's not a super like every car has this issue type deal. The turbos, again, like with the early cars, with the early cars, you have the head gasket leaking after 40 years, which is pretty common. The turbos, we're going to go ahead and just replace the head gaskets as well. We're going to try and clean everything up and do all that stuff, especially the oil cooler seals, and it happens to those too. But mainly with the turbos, you just want to go through and make sure there's no vacuum leaks. They're really bad about now with the turbos, their issue is they like making wires crispy. So check back here at these plugs and make sure they're not just dried up. And if you can flex them easy, like you can see this one right here doesn't like just bend up like that. And yeah, you want your wires, these look
actually really good. They're nice and soft, and they don't bend right here. What happens is, I don't know if people remove them over the years or whatever happens, but they just break, and just from the heat.
So turbo wiring harnesses are often very crispy and brittle. So same's going to go with their vacuum lines. You want to just go through, like, especially this one here. This one loves to just, this was originally a clear line 40 years ago, and you can see it's opaque now, and yeah, it'll snap. So it's probably a good idea to replace that. It still has a little bit of flex in it. Some of these I touch them and they just snap completely in half. So that's probably a good one for a while. If I was going to nitpick the car, I would say replace that, but it's probably going to be okay for now. But this car, like I said, is just getting a few odds and ends. Now, if it was getting something more serious, then yeah, I would definitely try and replace that. Mark says he's looking for someone in the Midwest to do sleeves. I am not sure. People ask me all the time, you know, who works on cars out there? I don't leave my shop, man. I'm here 24/7 when I go home to sleep. So I know what's going on around here, and that's about the end. But as far as sleeves go, if you ever need something like that, you could probably just ship out. It's not super expensive to ship an engine block, although I understand if you don't want to, because we get things broken sometimes. But I'm not exactly sure who could do that for you. FCIC says I had rusted mine and did a patch repair. Awesome. Yeah. Hopefully you caught it early. Yeah. It's one of those things, they grow and can sometimes get a lot worse. But yeah, we see battery tray damage, but it's not as, it's not as common as people would make it out to be. The funny thing about the internet is that someone they buy a 944 and didn't look it over really good or something, and they go and complain on the forum about it, and then people go, oh, must be every 944. It's got 20,000 views. No, it's it's just one person, maybe two, maybe three. Like I said, I do see the battery tray option. Do see battery tray failures and rusting out and stuff, but it's like probably not it's not that common. We've probably seen 5 or 10, maybe ever, if that. But yeah, the common things I'd look for, especially on turbos, like I said, every turbo is going to have crusty vacuum lines and crusty wiring harness. So probably going to be some things you need to check. The same thing with the S. This happened on the S. So we had to replace this plug for the sensor on the S. So the S does it too. The NAs, the regular naturally aspirated will too, but the S and the turbos are particularly bad about this. You can see we had to fix the wiring here too. So both of these were rotted out. We replaced the wires on both of these. Just due to the heat, so brittle up underneath there. But on this over here, I've been looking for this flashlight for like 2 days. It's just sitting on this bumper. But but yeah, the NAs don't typically have that issue. It does happen, but it's not as common. All right, guys, that's some quick overviews of what to look for when you're buying a 944, and you just got to go through them. Even if they've been sitting in the barn, just got to go through them and make sure everything's good on them. But other than that, pretty good little cars. I see a lot of them, work on a lot of them, so hopefully that helped you guys, but I'm gonna go ahead and take off here. Hope you guys have a great Saturday, and I'm gonna try and live stream from 944 Fest. I don't know if I'm gonna have any cellular service out there, but rather than making a video this year, I think I'll just live stream. So you guys get to see it loud, so live. But what I'm thinking is, who knows what the schedule will be, when things are gonna happen, when I'll be able to do it, if I can do it. So yeah, if you're just hanging around, then just check it out whenever you can, and we'll see if we can make it happen. Hopefully, if I got some cell signal, but it may just be at random times. There may be times where, oh, I'll live stream this, but now I'm getting pulled into a conversation or something somewhere. So, and I may not be able to stay on. But anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed it, and hope to see you next week from 944 Fest. Have a good one.